I'm Chase Hughes, that's Bijan Todd, and on today's episode of Off the Bench, we've got an extensive interview with former Georgetown star and NBA player and current Wizards radio analyst Chris Wright. He gives us his insight on the Wizards season so far, plus tells some great stories from his playing days. Bijan and I will also break down the Maryland Terrapins landing a potential future NBA star on the recruiting trail. Big news in College Park. But before all that, Bijan, let's take a closer look at the first month of the Wizards season with the return of our segment called 3 Points. Each of us will give 3 thoughts on what we've seen so far, the good, the bad, and the in-between. So why don't you start us off right now with your first one?
My first point is a positive, and it's centered around one guy who I think has morphed into the defensive anchor of the team that everybody has wanted him to be, Alex Sarr. He has completely revamped his game. I think it is, apart from Keyshawn George, the biggest positive that any Wizards fan can take from the season thus far. Sarr has played more in the paint. He's been way more aggressive on offense. His momentum often when he catches the ball is towards the hoop rather than towards the free throw line ish. He just wants to get as deep as possible as he can into the paint, and it's been a really good sight to see. And I wrote down some stats comparing his rookie season to this season. And keep in mind, his minutes have pretty much stayed the same. Like last year, he played 27 minutes a game. This year, he's playing 29. So not that big of a difference. But his points have gone up from 13 to 18.1. Assists, 2.4 to 3.6. More blocks, more rebounds. His field goal percentage is up from 39% to 51%, and his three-point percentage is up from 31 to 35. I don't know if that has to do with him not playing alongside Jonas Valanciunas, who was this clear-cut 5 at the beginning of last year, or if it's something else. But this year, I've been very impressed with Alex Sarr.
Much more efficient, doing a lot more around the rim, as you mentioned. Also doing a great job setting screens for others, and also doing a great job protecting the rim, which I'll mention in a moment here. My first point is also a good one, and that is the play of Keyshawn George. He's arguably been one of the most improved players in the entire league so far this season. He's averaging 16 and a half points, about 6.5 boards, about 5 assists, about a steal and a block per game, and he's doing it all efficiently, shooting 48% from the field, 44% from three, just like Alex Sarr. Those numbers have skyrocketed, and he's got an effective field goal percentage of just over 58%, which is excellent, especially for a young player and for a guy who has the ball as often as he does. One of the things that surprised me the most about his season so far is just how big his role has been for the Wizards. They run a ton of pick and rolls through him, more than 3 times as many as they did last year. And he's averaging about 69 touches per game, which currently ranks up there with stars around the league like Wemby, Ant-Man, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And he's been taking some of the toughest defensive assignments on top of all that. And it's not just that it's been star players. It's like the wide range of types of players that he's defended. Everybody from like Giannis to Anthony Davis, Cooper Flagg, but also guards that are smaller and quicker than him, like Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. So really impressive what they've thrown at Keyshawn so far and how well he's handled it.
And that's been one of the most impressive things to me. You mentioned like his usage. Like going into the season, you and I were talking about it. My money was on Bub Carrington and CJ McCollum being the vast majority of, or taking the vast majority of the ball handling minutes for this team. They've both handled the ball a decent amount, but Keyshawn George has been the go-to guy. Like when they catch a rebound and they're not getting in transition, which they love to do, they love to play fast. But when they don't do that and they get into their half-court sets, it's Keyshawn's game to play. And they've been going to him a lot, and that's been really impressive to see. So I love that. My second point for 3 points is also a positive. I'm going to go to another player who I've really enjoyed seeing this year, and that's been Cam Whitmore. First couple games, didn't really play the way that I think coaches and fans wanted him to play. He didn't really buy into the system as much. Part of that is just a learning curve of going to a new team. Last few games, he has absolutely bought into the system, and he has played phenomenally well. He's been incredibly efficient. I wrote down some stats from him as well, and shout out to you, Chase, actually. You made me aware of the points per touch stat, and now that Cam Whitmore's on the team, that's like my favorite stat. So he scores 0.472 points every time he touches the ball. That's fourth in the NBA, not just on the Wizards, but in the NBA. The top 3 are Norman Powell, Lauri Markkanen, who's having an unreal season, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, then Cam Whitmore, and then number 5 on that list is Steph Curry. So Cam Whitmore, in terms of efficiency, is off the charts. What I like about him, though, is that his usage percentage is 4th on the Wizards alone. So he's fourth in the NBA in points per touch, but he's fourth on the team in usage. That means that he's playing off ball and he's getting to his spots. The Wizards are not running plays through him necessarily, but they are running sets that involve him at the end where he can get an open look or he's getting down low into the paint and stuff like that. He's also crashing the boards a lot. So I've loved what I've seen from Cam Whitmore. I think he's been a huge boost to this team's overall intensity and their excitement to watch because he has some crazy dunks as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. And it's pretty amazing. If we did this after the first 2 weeks, you might have said he was one of the most disappointing players on the team,
Yeah,
right? But he's really turned things around.
flipped it
And
around on us.
I've got a stat for you. So the Wizards are trying to level up this season in hustle categories like taking charges, deflections, that sort of thing. And Brian Keefe talked about them on Media Day. And one of the things that has been identified, it was actually by Corey Kispert, was loose balls recovered. Cam Whitmore leads the team in loose balls recovered. He's not playing a ton of minutes either. So I think that really goes to show how much he's been hustling for this team. Um, my second one is an area for growth, and that is defense. Specifically the defensive rating, which as we sit here today is 30th in the NBA. It's last in the league. They were 27th last year. It's going to be something we're going to be checking in on all season, but disappointing so far. No way around that, right? But I will say there is some encouraging context, and that is the Wizards are actually much improved around the rim on defense. Last season, they were 30th in opponent field goal percentage in the restricted area. This season, they're ninth, and they've dropped that percentage that they're allowing by about 6 points, which is significant, right? Now, the problem is they allow the second most attempts at the rim, and as a result, they give up more paint points than any other team, 56 paint points per game. For comparison, the Thunder lead the league, only allowing 38 points in the paint. Points in the paint. That's always a tough thing to say. Say that 5 times fast, as Drew Gooden would say. But the upshot here is that the Wizards are not very good at preventing players from getting to the rim, but they're doing a pretty good job of cleaning things up on the back end. And we're not seeing it with the defensive rating yet, but it's possible that the tide is starting to turn because rim defense is a very important part of the overall equation.
And we got to shout out our boy here, who you and I are both fans of, and that's Marvin Bagley. And we obviously shout out Alex Sarr a lot for being the
Right.
defensive anchor that we've talked about.
I should have mentioned Alex Sarr by name because obviously he's a big part of that.
He's a huge part of it, but like it's not just him, right? Like last year, as I mentioned, Valanciunas was a huge part of that. I was I thought the fact that the Wizards brought back Marvin Bagley over the summer went way under the radar. When that happened, I was like, this is a big deal. Like Marvin Bagley has bounced around a little bit in the NBA, but and shout out to Chase Hughes who wrote a story about this last week. He's found a niche in the Wizards organization where he can be that backup big and be that secondary rim protector that the Wizards need. Like every NBA team needs a guy to do that. Last year, the NBA champion OKC Thunder had Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. Year before that, the Celtics had Kristaps Porzingis, right? So you need a guy down low who can come off the bench as well as start. Alex Sarr is a starter. Bagley comes off the bench, who can be that defensive anchor in the paint. So I think that's a huge aspect of it. My third point, and I'm going to go negative with this one too because I had two positives. I'll do one negative, is the Wizards' clutch time execution, late game execution has not been good this year. And we just saw it in a game recently against the Chicago Bulls where they were down by one. They had a chance to take a shot to win the game, and Keyshawn George turned the ball over. It was revealed after the fact that he did get fouled, which Brian Keefe made us aware of today in practice. So he did get fouled. The refs didn't call it. I don't really see a situation where you would call that in that situation, but it's fine. But there are good to take from this too. So the Wizards do turn the ball over a lot in the clutch, and they haven't been winning a lot of games that they've played in the clutch, but it's the product of being a young team and a new team. Like a lot of the players who are here have not played with this cast of characters before, like CJ McCollum, like Cam Whitmore, and like Trey Johnson, and a bunch of these guys who have just gotten to the team. Last season, the Wizards played a total of 85 minutes in the clutch, and they went 13 and 16 in those games, which is actually pretty good.
Second fewest in the league,
Yeah.
clutch minutes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Only
way
to
down.
the Oklahoma City Thunder, who played very few clutch minutes for a very different reason.
Yeah, they're blowing people out. But in this, so the 85 minutes last year, this season already, the Wizards have played 26 minutes in the clutch, which is on pace to be 133, which would just be about middle of the pack. if you take last year's numbers into account. So they're playing a
So
lot
not
more
quite
flexible.
doubling it, but that would be like a 60% increase or something.
It's huge. And for a young team where the vast majority of guys getting minutes are rookies or guys in their second or third years, that's absolutely massive. And the other numbers stemming from the clutch minutes are not good. Like they turn the ball over, as I mentioned. Their true shooting percentage is just about 35.7% this year in the clutch, which is not great. Again, it's the product of being a young team. It's not going to not change. It will change. You just need to give these guys the opportunity, and that's what they're getting.
The opportunity is the most important thing to me at this point. I thought it would have been ideal last year if they played more clutch minutes. If they can correct that this year, just simply get the young guys time and score experience at the end of games. I think that could be really valuable because, as Brian Keefe explained, the Bulls unexpectedly sent a double team at
Hmm.
Keyshawn George. So they didn't expect that necessarily. Next time a team sends a double team at Keyshawn George, he's going to see it coming with, I think, better anticipation than he did this time because it was the first time that's probably maybe potentially ever happened to him in that situation,
I think
right?
it is because we didn't see it his rookie year and we didn't see it yet this year because the other game where it happened, Chris Middleton had the ball and he took a shot and he didn't make it. That was Keyshawn George's first rodeo, I think. So that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. So now he's seen it. We'll see if he can adapt differently next time. My last point is small, but another positive trend, and that is the Wizards are ninth in the NBA in 3-point percentage. Last year they were 29th, and it's been 6 years since they were top 10 in that category. And obviously, 3-point shooting is really important in this day and age. It determines the outcome of a lot of games, and the Wizards are getting better in that category. I find that really encouraging. And what's interesting is they're actually getting fewer open looks from 3-point range than they did last year. They're just making them more, right? And before this season, I told you I'd be watching the 3-point percentage specifically of their young players because that's the nucleus that's going to continue to develop and affect the long term outlook of the team more than anyone else on the roster. Well, here's an encouraging update. Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, and even Bilal Coulibaly have all improved their 3-point percentage from last season. So I like the direction that they're headed in this regard.
And how much of that has to do with new arrivals like CJ McCollum just opening up space for guys and the fact that Trey Johnson is here and he's a deep threat, especially in transition?
He's shooting almost 40% from three, Trey Johnson.
Yeah, and Bub Carrington, who we've talked about on this show, has had his struggles getting to the paint this year, but his shooting percentages from deep are way up. Like he's shooting, what, 44, 45-ish% from three, which is insane. So I love the fact that they're doing it, and I think that's only going to improve the more paint touches they get. We've made a lot about paint touches on this show, and rightfully so, because it is correlated to successful offensive basketball. So the more that goes up, the more everything outside of the paint will go up as well.
I think they have better 3-point shooting personnel now. They still don't have the guy who can kind of get into the paint or like several guys who can just open things up for everybody else. Maybe they're developing that on their roster, but there is reason to believe that like these guys could get more open looks as time goes on, although obviously defenses will adjust and try to take away that space, and we'll see a little bit of gravity on the floor with some of these guys who are knocking down threes. All right, let's move on to our interview with Chris Wright. You've probably heard the name. He started Georgetown. He started St. John's before that, played in the NBA. He's currently on the Wizards radio broadcast as an analyst on the post-game show. But you might not know Chris Wright very well. I didn't know him very well until I started to get to know him last year. And he's got a great personality, a lot of insight, and some great stories. So here's our interview with Chris Wright. We're pleased to be joined by our guy, Chris Wright, a former NBA player who also played pro overseas. And before that, of course, was a star at Georgetown, a McDonald's All-American. He played at St. John's High School in D.C. Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
All right, let's start with the Wizards because you, Bijan, and I were just hosting the post-game radio show.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about the game that night, but we didn't really get into big picture takeaways. So as we look back at the first month of the regular season for the Wizards, just what has stood out to you about this team?
Mostly, I would say it's two players that have made a significant jump this season for me. Is one Alex Sarr, just in his physicality, his understanding of what his strengths are, getting to the basket, using his athleticism, understanding there's not a lot of shot blockers and rim protectors in the NBA. So 9 times out of 10, he's going to have advantage by him going down the lane and trying to finish over guys. So I definitely Alex Sarr, just his physicality, he looks bigger, he looks stronger this year. He's shooting less threes, which I think is more of an advantage from or for him. He's also not fading away on his shots. He's going towards the rim. So you're starting to see a lot of improvement out of him. Then also, I mean, it's obvious it's Keyshawn George. this his total evolution in terms of his ball usage rate, in terms of his playmaking ability, his shooting. He always was kind of a feisty defender, but you're starting to see him take on that identity and his confidence is growing on both ends. So at early season, within the first 15, 16 games, what, first third or whatever of the season, those two guys have shown tremendous, tremendous improvement for me.
So, Chris, you mentioned Alex and Keyshawn, and we actually mentioned both of those guys as well in our early season takeaways because it's like pretty obvious they're like the biggest shining beacons of what a Wizards improvement player looks like this year. There's another player who wasn't here last year who has improved within the sample size of this season, and that's Cam Whitmore. So, what have you seen from Cam going from his first nine-ish games to the last half dozen or dozen? What have you seen from him?
So it's crazy. It's a weird connection I have with Cam Whitmore. He doesn't even know this, but his high school basketball coach, Josh Pratt at Spalding, was actually my English teacher in middle school at Benjamin Tashke Middle School in Bowie. So he always followed my career. We always kind of follow each other's paths, and he always told me about Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore, Chris, you gotta check out Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore is gonna be the next one. So it's good to see what he was saying come to a prophetic truth, and he's playing for the Washington Wizards. And what I can say about him this season is that we're seeing him mature. We're seeing him mature. We always knew the skill set was there. We always knew the athleticism was there, the offensive tools, the body, the physicality, the quick twitch, just the explosiveness was already there. But his ability now to try to he's becoming a man and he's starting to walk and he's starting to have that demeanor. He's starting to mature into his game, understanding his role. And it takes time. He's a young guy that had a lot of opportunities in front of him, and he was a guy that was touted as the greatest thing in the world. And he got a little humbled last year, and he's coming back, and you're seeing that he's learned from his lessons, and he's trying to, make amends on that. So I definitely would tip my head at Cam Whitmore for how he started the season, and I think this is going to be something that's going to continue to trend in that direction.
Chris, speaking of random connections, the first time I met you and got to know you, we're doing the Wizards radio post-game show. We're at Caesar Sportsbook. We grab a beer afterwards.
Yeah.
You introduced me to your friend LJ, and
Yes,
it
sir.
doesn't take too long before I put two and two together
Yeah.
that this is LJ Hose, who played in the majors. He played for the Orioles. He played for the Astros. He was actually, I believe, on the team in 2014 when they went to the ALCS. I covered that series, Orioles Royals. And I find it so funny and amazing that you guys grew up together.
Yeah.
You're best friends.
Yeah.
One guy makes the NBA, one guy makes Major League Baseball. How does that happen? Please tell fans the entire story.
It was very organic. That's been my guy since shoot 5, 6 years old. We've been best friends. Literally got off the phone with him probably like 10 minutes before I got on with you guys. But I mean, we were just both young. We come from a similar backgrounds in terms of our families. We had both a similar desire to want to play at the highest level, and we were obsessed with the games that we loved early. And I think that's something that we fed off of each other, the competitive nature. We won a national championship at 10 years old together playing basketball. We went to high school. We were in the backcourt together. I remember him, he's a year behind me. Well, we're supposed to be same class, but I should have been in '08, but that's another story. His first games baseball, you hear me, it's nobody yelling at baseball. You hear me cheering like, let's go. And he hits a home run. He breaks a home run record his sophomore year, his first game sophomore year. So he was one of those guys that we kind of always mirrored each other in terms of positive competition. And it was a lot of love, it was a lot of mutual respect, and we rooted for each other. It's my brother. I want for him what I want for myself. So we've always been like, even to this day, you see us chase, you see us all the time. That we're still very close. We still watch a game. I can remember him opening night hitting a home run off of CC Sabathia in Yankee Stadium. Like, it's like my best friend is hitting off a Hall of Famer right now. So LJ is an exceptional athlete, an exceptional coach. And he's accomplished a lot in his short life so far. But we rolling. That's my guy.
When did you, I mean, you mentioned when you guys met.
Mm.
How did you meet at such a young age and the trajectory there? Like, when did you realize, okay, this guy might be a big leaguer? And when do you think it kind of became clear that you could make it to the NBA?
So we met at Good Luck Community Center. Good Luck Community Center off of Good Luck Road in PG County. And he was actually playing on a rec ball basketball team there. And my uncle Steve, was the head coach there. And he was like, Chris, come to practice with me or whatever. He's like, man, I know these kids may not be as good as you, but they're obsessed like you are. I remember him saying, he said, they're obsessed about the game like you are. Come on, just practice with us. And the best player was LJ. And LJ was going hard and going hard. He was doing his thing. He was killing everybody out there. And then I came out and I started killing him. And then we started going back and forth. And next thing you know, after that, that's how we became just like this, right? Now, when LJ was 10 years old, it's a true statement. We won a national championship and we had a party at my one of my good friends, Kevin Ford, who's now running for state senator in PG County. It's one of my good friends. This is Rising Stars team. We have some special guys on our team.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So, so yeah, shout out to Kevin. We actually just had a fundraiser for him at one of my other friends' office who played on our team as well, who works for Merrill Lynch.
And that guy's
Um,
about to become president, I'm sure, right?
Most likely, most likely. So no, we had a party just celebrating our season at 10 and under. And the guys go around, this person comes up, another guy comes up, we say LJ, LJ Hose. What can we say about LJ Hose? And everybody in the whole building say he's gonna be a pro something. Like he had that talent, that it factor at 9. You know what I mean? You just knew that he was going to be a pro at something. Then he picked up the base. His father was a baseball player. His father was a football player, and he naturally just gravitated to baseball. He just had a rhythm for it, coordination for it. Early, he was fast. He was strong. He had a quick twitch. He could hit the ball anywhere on the field. He could field anywhere. I mean, he was one of those kids that just put him out there, he'll make things happen, And so that's how we got close. That's how we got close. And we went to Riverdale Baptist together. Then we went to St. John's together, So we kind of stayed. We actually, as quiet as it's kept, when I committed to North Carolina State, he was on a visit with me on a baseball visit. And he was committing to North Carolina State too. And then I ended up coming out. So it was a whole, we always kind of always figured that we would be doing things together, and we have been.
If it figures like one of those friendships where you would school him on the basketball court, and then he would be like, "Yeah, just let me pitch to you," and then he would pitch to you, and you would strike out. Like one of those. It was quid pro quo, you know.
I was schooling him on a basketball court, then I strike him out. That's what it
All
was.
right, you had it both ways.
Yeah, nah. Yeah, it's exactly how it was, Bijan. Exactly how it was.
Well, Chris, when you ended up growing up, you went to St. John's, you became a McDonald's All-American before you got to Georgetown. What was that experience like? Because we'll get into the whole team that you were on, the McDonald's All-American team of '07. But what was that like when you found out the news that you were a McDonald's All-American and then playing in the game with future Hall of Famers and everything? What was that like?
It was a McDonald's All-American seemed like a just a fantasy world for a long time, with the names that come through it and all that stuff. It's not something that you really think is attainable. All the kids in America, and you one of the top 24 kids. So I was blessed to be in an environment that was rich in basketball in the DMV. I was blessed to be in an elite conference. I was blessed to be around some people that had some voting power on the committee in terms of Morgan Wooten and Boo Williams and some other guys that. So, and that's who I played for at AU was Boo Williams. And not saying that I wouldn't got selected anyway, but that also played a major role. But in terms of the McDonald's, it was more just when I think about those accomplishments, it's more just the process that it took to get there, more so than anything. Not like, oh, I'm in a McDonald's game. Oh, I'm a McDonald's 3-point contest. I won a 3-point contest. It's not, it wasn't even that. It was the process that it took for me to actually get to Louisville, Kentucky, to be in that McDonald's All-American game and be a part of that history. So, it's really just a testament to my support team, my parents, my brother, and all the work that we put in over the time, my coaches, my teammates. It was an honor. I was blessed. I was blessed with that.
Next two questions from me. First one's a quick one. Is the rumor true that if you are a McDonald's All-American, you get a card that gets you free McDonald's for a year?
I tried it. I don't think so.
Oh my, that is the most disappointing thing I've heard.
I
Are you
tried
kidding
it.
me?
I tried it. Yeah, I tried to
You,
go
you
in with
mean
my jersey.
they gave you a card and it didn't work?
No, I went in there with my whole outfit on, like I'm
Oh,
McDonald's
okay.
American, and saying that they told me that I get free McDonald's for the next 2 years. And it was like, yeah, we didn't get that message.
Oh,
That might have been a
wow.
good thing, actually. Like your colon is probably a lot better off now
Yeah,
that you get
right,
free
Yeah.
right,
McDonald's.
right, right.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe wouldn't have made it to the NBA after
I,
that.
I
Too much
think I told him
McDonald's.
as long as I'm on Obamacare, I should get free McDonald's.
Yeah, there you go. All right, second one about the McDonald's All-American game. A guy who was in it is someone who you grew up with to a certain extent, Michael Beasley, and everyone knows that he was the second overall pick in the draft. Played for the Miami Heat, but before that, before Kansas State, he was kind of a legend around here, wasn't he? What was it like, kind of being around the same class as him?
So my class from PG County, we had 4 McDonald's All-Americans in that class. Myself, Austin Freeman, Nolan Smith, who's now head coach at Tennessee State, played at Duke. ACC Player of the Year, first round draft pick, all that. And then Mike. So we have four guys. Mike was an interesting guy. You can see from the beginning, and I'm interested in the most positive way. He's one of the most intelligent people I think I've ever been around in my life. Highly, highly intelligent. Like he understands things. You got to tell Mike something on the basketball court. One time he got it, extremely fluid, extremely in a way, always very elegant the way he played. He had just had a style about him, a grace, even when he didn't have it figured out. He just had a grace and just a charisma about him that was contagious. Mike was that guy. He was silly, he was funny. Like I ain't even gonna say that story because we keep that off the air. But no, Mike was a good guy. He
Probably
was
got
a
a
good
few of
guy.
those.
Yeah, we got a lot of those. But he was a good guy that always wanted to be a part of something, you know what I mean? And the extreme competitor. I personally thought growing up, everybody, and this is kind of a PG County thing, DMV thing, Mike Beasley was better than Kevin Durant. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Until obviously now Kevin Durant is who Kevin Durant is, and we respect him. And we have nothing but love and admiration for what Kevin has done on the basketball court and continues to do. But at the time, it was like, yo, this dude here is, I mean, Kevin went to college and went and averaged 25 and 11. Then he comes the next year and averages 26 and 12. And the way he did it, it was very so Mike was a special talent from day one. It didn't click for him from day one, but he went away to IMG for a summer, for a year, and came back. And the Mike Beasley we see now for the last 25 years is who he was at like 14, 15.
Really? So he went away for a summer and you're
Well,
like around the same age and he came back just a different dude.
man, we were in true story, Chase. We played down at NC State against Monte Ellis in like a Bob Gibbons tournament. And I don't know if anybody remembers Monte in high school. Monte was like if you didn't know what Allen Iverson was, you would think it was Monte Ellis in high school. Explosive, as fast as anything, get his shot quick, like amazing, 50, 60 points, whatever. And we played down there, and I remember we were playing 17s. Curtis Malone had us sitting on the bench with the 17. We were 12, 13 years old.
Because you guys were on the same AAU team, right?
Yeah, me, Nolan,
Yeah.
Mike, and Austin came later. But yeah, me, Nolan, and Mike were on the same team at this time.
Wow.
And we're sitting on the end of the bench. We like the young guys. I'm the youngest. They're like, a couple months older than me and stuff. And I remember Mike sitting on the end of the bench. Mike's probably 6'3", 6'4", wears like a size 19 shoe at this time or something. And he's saying, man, I can't stand this. We ain't never gonna play. They ain't, man, he ain't putting us in. Da, da, da. I mean, I'm out of here. Wait till I get back. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Mike be tripping. That's our thing. Mike be tripping. Mike went to IMG, and I never forget. We played at the Charlie Weber at University of Maryland. And I walked in with Nolan Smith. And Nolan was like, my nickname is Lumpy. He was like, Lump. He was like, wait till you see Mike. I'm like, Mike who? Like bees, wait till you see bees. I'm like, for real? Man, he had about 30 points in the first half. Like it became who he was. It went 1 year of getting, serious training and locking in 6 months, whatever it was. By the first spring tournament, he would have after that tournament, he was probably a top 10 player. After another game, he was number one player in the country, and the rest is history. So Mike just had that kind of once it clicked and once he understood it, it was a wrap.
It was like DMV basketball royalty, like you two plus the KDs and everybody of the world. That's crazy.
Yeah, Ty Lawson's, Quinn Cooks. It's a lot of guys from the DMV that just have even before us. I mean, let's not even the James Whites, the DeMar Johnsons, and it's so many guys that came before us that had significant impacts and that did so much stuff. Even back before that, the Kurt Smiths and the Sherman Douglas and the Johnny Dern and the big men that we used to have, all the guys that we used to have from back, Craig Sheltons and
Mhm.
all these guys from back in the day. So yeah, we've always been extremely rich in this area in basketball, no doubt about it.
Let's move on to your pro career, Chris, because
Mhm.
you had an amazing pro career, lasted over a decade. You went everywhere in the globe essentially to play basketball. You played 3 games in the NBA. You made it to the Dallas Mavericks and you played 3 games. It was a brief stint in the NBA, but you climbed that mountaintop. Like you played in 3 NBA games. When you reflect on your career and specifically the fact that you made it to the NBA, how do you how do you reflect on it and how do you weigh the gratitude of, oh my God, I made it to the NBA with it was a short stint that I had, but it was still amazing.
So a lot of times now when I work with kids a lot, I work with a lot of kids at all different ages. I coach, I work in education, I train, I work with a lot of different kids. And a lot of times when you tell the kids something and they work on their stuff, they say, I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm like, yeah, I know you're trying. We all trying. We all trying. But the real thing which you need to understand is you need to be striving. You need to be striving, not trying. Striving, trying is, if you look at the definition, it's basically into it. You did something, okay, whatever. Whatever happens, happens. Striving is, it's a compound word. It's two words. It's trying and struggle. So that means in order to get to, you have to strenuously try and attack what you want until you reach your intention.
Mhm.
Not just go through the motion and try, oh, I did it one time. No, no, no. We must be striving. So those words are something in my career that I think stood the test of time for me. Like I had to fight for everything. I was the first player at my rookie year, I got diagnosed with MS. And so there's no blueprint, there's nobody there to show me what to do. I had to teach myself how to walk, I had to teach myself how to run, jump, push-ups, everything coordination wise. And I had to teach myself over because I had a goal. I had a goal that this is what I want to do, this is what I set out to do, and nothing's going to change that. So I'm a firm believer if you are striving and you put that work in, not only just believe and have faith, but if you actually do the work and you're productive, eventually things will fall in your manner. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy or it's going to be fun, but if you have a goal and you set out for it, then you can reach it. So that's how I view my career, and that's why I look at my career and I feel good about what I did because I bust my ass, guys. And no joke, it was a lot of times where I didn't know. I didn't know what was the blueprint. It was a lot of trial and error, but I never missed a game from multiple sclerosis. I started everywhere I went. I led leagues in assists. I led leagues in scoring. I was able to make the NBA. And when I made the NBA, I had more opportunities, but I had another MS episode that people don't know about. So it was just timing, a lot of timing things. When I came out, it was an NBA lockout. You know what I mean? So I didn't even have a chance to do summer league or do any type of workouts, anything like that. That's the year everybody's playing pickup ball all over the place, and they having all these games. So my career was fun. It was a time period of a lot of transformation in the game of basketball. From the time period of 2007 until probably last 5, 10 years. Look at how much change has happened over that time period. Aesthetically, what I mean, from the players to the style of clothes to the style of game to the offensive systems to the shooting to the side, everything has changed. It was probably the biggest transformation in the game of basketball. It's probably been in the last 15, 20 years. In terms of style and I was literally in between every different phase. I remember when they were talking about bringing in new facilities, training facilities, practice facilities at universities, the Villanovas of the world, the Georgetowns of the world, the NC States, they were all, oh, in a year or two, we're gonna have this brand new state-of-the-art facility. So all the old things were starting to get pushed out. Cole Fieldhouse was starting to get pushed out. It was new things coming. So it was a very much a transitional stage that I think players in my era, if we kind of get overlooked a little bit because there's so much change that was going on, in that time period of like 2005 to 2011. A lot of people don't really pay attention to that because of so much. Remember how long the shorts was? The next thing you know, the shorts came all the way up. We went from high cut Jordan sneakers to Steve Nash wearing low cuts. And that became the wave. And then Kobe wears low cuts. And that became, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of changes going on. The way the game was looked, analytics became a part of the game. So everything, we went to hybrid point guards when you start coming into the Derrick Rose and the Russell Westbrook era and just these elite Tyreek Evans, these kind of hybrid playmakers, scorers, became so I really enjoyed my time and I learned a lot. And I think that's why I feel good about what I did and I'm happy to still be around the game.
Being in the NBA while you were there, you played with Vince Carter and Dirk,
Yeah,
right? On
yeah,
the Mavs.
yeah.
In the time that you did have in the NBA, what kind of stands out as a memory and, maybe one that involves those guys?
Dirk said he loves DC is one of his favorite trips.
No
That's
way.
yeah,
There you go.
What
that's
do you
one
love
of the
about
first.
DC? What do you say about it?
He just loved the city. He really loved how, it was, he just loved the city. He said, one of my favorite trips is coming to DC, man. I just like it here. It's just really cool. I just like the energy and all. I'm like, man, we wish you could have came and played for
I
us. We would have
Like,
know.
loved
come
that.
on,
Like,
dude.
what? Can you imagine Dirk in DC? But anyway, Vince Carter, they were all special. One thing I appreciated about them is that I really started to understand what it meant to be a professional. and how to go about that. When you get to be around those guys and you get to be around elite talent and people that have done it consistently, you see the separation between a pro and a professional. Someone that's trying to accomplish something for over a long period of time as someone that's happy to be here. And those guys embodied it. And that's just a diligent work, a striving attitude to continuously go in the gym every single day, doing something, working on your body, working on your shot, working on watching film, something to continuously improve. My first game was against San Antonio Spurs, and I meet them in San Antonio, and it gets down to the last shot. Rick Carlisle draws up a play. I think it's for, I don't know, I can't remember who the play is for, but it ends up in Vince's hands, and Vince hits a game winner two nights before, like a week before, and misses this one. So we going to on the, we going to plane, we leaving the game, we gotta go to Atlanta next game. And Vince has got the film. He's sitting there, Rich said, he's watching the film. So I'm just sitting back looking at him, just kind of watching and paying attention. I'm like, okay. He like, Chris, look, see, I could have did this. He just started talking to me. And I bet you Vince don't even remember me to this day. He probably don't even remember who I was. I was there for maybe 10 minutes. But he remembers like the fact that I saw like, dang, these guys are really connected to what's going on. It's not something that's just, he's not just half man, half amazing. He's really, it's substance behind this. And every day I saw it. I'm in there 4 hours. Dirk is in there before me. Before the game. I'm in there 4 hours before Dirk is in there getting treatment, stretching. He done worked out, he done ate, all type of stuff. So it's like you see why these guys go 12 for 17 and 43 points and close out games. And they do it consistently and they do it over and over and over again. That's one thing I really enjoyed about playing with the Mavs.
And that's what I was going to ask you about too, is because like you got the behind the scenes look, obviously being on an NBA roster, you got to see the preparation and the work ethic and the talent level of players in the NBA. And then you got to play in a bunch of different other scenarios. Like you played in the G League, which was in the D League. You also played, I want to make sure I get this right, Puerto Rico, France, Italy, Israel, Poland, Turkey, Mexico, Spain.
Yeah,
And so you played everywhere and at
yeah,
every level. Can you
yeah.
just speak to the discrepancy, or if there is one, in the talent level between the NBA and pro leagues outside the United States and the D League and everywhere else?
This is a good segue for me right now. I appreciate it, and I appreciate Off the Bench. You guys got to go watch my movie. I'm in this movie on Hulu called Imported.
All right.
Imported is about American basketball players going over to Europe and what that's like for us to go over there in each different countries. It's featuring Edgar Sosa, played at Louisville,
Mhm.
James Gist, Maryland guy. Those are the main two focuses. Myself is in it, and then it's I can't remember her name. Dang, she was awesome. She was in Eastern Europe, but she's from Montgomery County,
Mhm.
and she was in it. So it's a great way to understand what Americans have to go through when they're called upon to go overseas and play. What I learned overseas and for me is that there's so many different styles. And one thing that's really interesting is that American coaches went over there and taught them.
Mhm.
In the 70s, in the 80s, they were having coaches clinics over there. That's the real progression of the game in the European game that we don't take credit for. Is a lot of the Hubie Browns, the PJ Carlissimos of the world, they were over there teaching these guys how to play, and they took it and ran with
They
it.
created a monster, man.
They created a monster, and that's what they really did. And every country kind of has their own style. Spain has their own style. Spain, to me, is probably the premier league in Europe in terms of talent, in terms of depth, in terms of coaches, in terms of just overall teams. They just have a certain style of basketball that I think probably translates. The Serbians play really well too. They just don't have the same amount of teams. Turkey has a really strong league. Spain is a more of a it's Spanish play. It's a Ricky Rubio style. It's a Sergio Rodriguez style. It's a Rudy Fernandez style. So it has a lot. They got a lot of game, a lot of charisma, a lot of they can shoot the ball. They're very skilled players. Italian league is more of a guard league. It's more the smaller bigs that can play. Those four mans that are kind of undersized, that got a lot of game, whatever, or can shoot and all that. That's a great league for the Italian. Or you're a guard, a Big East guard or ACC guard is a scoring guard. Italian league is a great guard. I mean, great league. France is a extremely athletic. Look at the guys that come in the league. Bilal. It's a
Mhm.
lot of guys like Bilal in the French league.
And they all play
Extremely.
defense.
They all play defense and they all are like kicking the rim. That's how high they jumping. It's like, what in the world is going on out here? But that's another extremely growing league. I played there. I played for Tony Parker's club, Lyon, probably now 12, 13 years ago. But yeah, I played for his club out there. And that's one thing I remember is how they were very skilled. They had an academy. So each country has their own style. Israel has its own style. Poland had its own style, which was kind of unique. So and then when you travel and playing against and playing in European competitions, you get to travel to different countries. Germany, big physical, strong league. Turkey, big dudes like Alperen Sengun. I played against him in Turkey. Strong, physical, set hard screens. You know what I mean? Like imagine he see how big and physical he plays in the NBA. Imagine he plays over there when they allow you to get away with a lot more stuff. So that's the thing that I started knowing. Every league. So you always have to be a student when you become a European professional basketball player because things change, cultural changes, different words, different terminology, is different ways of playing. So it was a constant evolution and constant growing process for me overseas.
One more before we let you run. Got to ask you about Georgetown, and especially because they got a player now who's really good named Malik Mack, who also played at St. John's. Now he's back in the area at Georgetown. I'm sure you take some pride in that. So
You see,
what
I got
do
my shirt on today.
Yeah, there
He's
you
repping the
go.
squad.
What should people know about Malik Mack and the Hoyas this year?
Malik is a better person than he is basketball player, and I say that with the utmost respect. He's a brilliant young man. Comes from a great family. Obviously, he comes from a great school at St. John's, and I think this year he's poised. And what we're seeing right now, he's a starting point guard for Georgetown, and right now we're 5-0. So that has to be a reflection of your point guard. You know what I mean? That has to be a reflection of your leadership. And for me, the third year in any program, any job, anything is kind of the year that you kind of solidify yourself and you understand the ins and outs of how things go. I'm sure, guys, when you started working with Monumental, it was probably the third year we kind of figure out, okay, I kind of know people now. Instead of just saying hi with faces, I actually know who this person is. I actually know what I'm talking about. I know the ropes when we go on the road, how things goes. I got maybe a restaurant or something I like to go to, know some people. All that makes a difference, in terms of comfort and being able to perform at your best. And I think Malik's progression from Harvard to transferring last year to all the things they had to go through in terms of personnel changes and injuries, he never really was able to find his comfort. This team is more suited to his role, is more suited to his style, is more suited to his charisma, his personality, and I think that's why we're starting to see him play. He looks comfortable. He also looks stronger. He looked like been in the weight room a little bit this summer. I talked to my same over, so I said, "Dang boy, you've been doing your push-ups and burpees a little bit."
Dude,
So
Georgetown kind of has a football-like roster. They're
we
big and
do. We
strong.
do. Well, that's the Big East. That's
Yeah.
the Big East. And also, that's also the first. This team is the first team that I think mirrors what an Ed Cooley team looks like. Like a Providence team that's big, strong, physical, athletic wings that play strong. This is the first time I've seen in his 3 years that this team mirrors what he was trying to put together, that what he did put together at Providence. So I think with the KJ Lewis is really good. He's another player that's really good, transfer from Arizona. So we got some pieces. Caleb Williams, another local guy, went to Sidwell. He's having an exceptional sophomore season. So we have some guys that are stepping up. Defense is our identity. The Big East is not going to be a slouch this year, but we're off to a great start. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on. And hopefully this year we get back in the tournament. And I think Malik is leading us in the right direction for that.
Chris, this was amazing. We really appreciate you coming on. The second I get home, I'm watching that movie called Imported. Is that right?
Imported. Check it out. It's on Hulu. My
On
man Mike
Hulu.
Creppy put it together.
I'm
Yeah.
going on Hulu the second I get home and I'm watching that. I'm going to text you my thoughts. I hope are you acting in the movie?
So it's a documentary, but I will
Documentary.
tell you this. I'm gonna tell you this. I actually thought I try to be very humble about myself. I really thought I was cool after this though, because I'll just give a little spoiler alert. The first person that speaks is Kobe Bryant. The second person that speaks is yours truly.
Wow.
I say, oh yes, I made it.
I'm
Let's
locked in.
go, baby.
I'm locked in. I'm watching that as soon as I get home. That's awesome. Can't wait. Chris, thank you so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. We'll catch up with you again soon, either at a Wizards game or at a Georgetown game or the post game show or something. We'll catch up, but we appreciate it today.
Thank you guys, man. You guys are doing a great job. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks to Chris Wright. That was great stuff from him. We'll have to have him back on again because he can talk just about everything when it comes to DC basketball, right? Analyst for the Wizards. He can talk Georgetown. He can talk local high school basketball. He was one of the best players we've seen in the WCAC in decades. So there's probably a lot more that we didn't get to with Chris Wright. But speaking of local college basketball, some big Terps news as last week, top 10 prospect Baba Oladatun committed to Maryland. This is a guy that you and I have talked about on the show before. He was the #1 player in the rising junior class, but then he reclassified to the senior class and somehow dropped to 10th, which I think is probably a little bit fishy. How do you drop 9 spots? Because he's 6'10", he moves like a guard. He's from Silver Spring. He plays at Blake High School, and he's drawn comparisons to Kevin Durant because he's 6'10", and he doesn't play like he's 6'10", right? So a great job by Buzz Williams and the Terps.
I think this is huge for the Terps because if you look it up, he becomes the second, Baba Olatunji becomes the second highest recruit ever in the history of Maryland basketball to commit to the team. He's number 10, as you mentioned. That surpasses Diamond Stone in 2015, who was number 8, and it surpasses Derek Queen, who was number 12, who played there last year, and now just so happens to be having a Rookie of the Year caliber season in New Orleans. So Baba Olatunji staying local, doing what he needs to do to get to the next level of basketball, and Buzz Williams recruiting his first real organic recruiting class, I want to say, because obviously he came here without his own players on the roster. Next year, 2026-27, will be a huge season for him, and I think Olatunji's arrival will do it'll do wonders for getting them to the tournament and getting them deep in the tournament like they did with Derek Queen.
Yeah, I didn't know that about him being such a highly rated recruit in the context of Maryland history, but it makes sense. Like, I've been a Maryland fan my entire life. I'm still getting used to them landing top local players because there was a long period of time where they didn't do that, right? Every Maryland fan could tell you, we wish Carmelo Anthony played here, Kevin Durant, Rudy Gay. Like, it had become a prevailing narrative for years, if not decades, that they couldn't keep the best local players home in an area where you kind of want to do that because there's great players that come through the DMV every single year, every single recruiting class, right?
Yeah.
And now between Derek Queen and Olatunji, like, it's just going to take some getting used to. And it's just exciting that they're keeping these top stars close to home because I think Derek Queen showed, even if they're here for a cup of coffee and it's basically a semester of college, they can still leave lasting memories. And now we're seeing him do what he's done for the New Orleans Pelicans. You take some pride in that, right? It's something that you want to continue to follow because that guy played at Maryland, even though it wasn't 4 years like we used to be used to with top stars in college. It's just fun to see. And so I'm guessing this is just the start, honestly, for Buzz Williams, because I was at DeMatha over the summer at DMV Live, and I saw him sitting front row watching a bunch of top prospects, including Caden Samuels of Bishop McNamara, who's another top 10 guy from the same class. So we'll see if Buzz Williams can close the deal on that one. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Off the Bench. For Chris Wright and Bijan Todd, I'm Chase Hughes. Thanks for watching, everyone.